Cool. Well, welcome to the Beyond Cinema studio, Robert Gordon, Morgan Neville. Firstly, congratulations on being here.
Thank you. Happy to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Morgan, congratulations on being back so quickly, so soon.
Do what I can.
He's a busy man and effective.
It's been an epic year. I mean, we have to kind of start with that. I mean, really for you from 12 months ago, almost to the day, you know, till obviously through the Oscar season and then and all the buzz and all the play that it's had all around, the 20 Feet from Stardom's had all around the country. Having that sort of love, is it now a case of you come up to Sundance and kind of the swagger's a little different?
You know, the way I think about it, you can only be Cinderella once.
Yeah.
And I had this incredible Cinderella experience with 20 Feet from Stardom, and the film just took off in a way none of us imagined, and it was amazing, but it was kind of like this amazing dream we had.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just trying to put it back in the box and keep it there, and now say, okay, now I need to move on with the rest of my real life, and that's why I'm back here, you know, just making films, which is what I want to do.
Cool. So did Best of Enemies process must have started during, or if not very soon
Before.
after you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So how
2010.
long? 2010 was the nexus for this. So Gore, Vidal, obviously the film is about these two figures. If you want to tell us a little bit about those, but Gore was still alive at the time.
Sure. It's about Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley, you know, a famous liberal public intellectual and a famous conservative intellectual who hated each other's guts. And they were not frenemies, they were just enemies.
Yeah.
And they went on TV in 1968 and had a series of nationally televised network debates that the country watched, and they were amazing. And I found the story because Robert called me about it.
A friend of mine had come upon a bootleg DVD of most of the debates, and I watched them. And I was, you know, my documentarian radar started beeping very loudly, and I found out that the footage was available to license. I called my film partner Morgan, said, I think I got one.
Yeah. And there was a Gore Vidal documentary as
No,
well.
that thing was nothing. Wasn't even, I don't even think it was on their radar at that point in time. We actually thought this would be a very commercially appealing, easy show to make, but for whatever reason, you know, I think people found it sort of too rooted in the past and didn't understand why it was important or how it was relevant, how it would resonate with today's audience. But we were both immediately, you watch these two guys go at it, and you see the root of cable news now, and also the whole sense of the culture wars is embodied in the arguments between these two guys.
Yeah, I mean, the comment we get now is, I can't believe how relevant this is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In many ways. I mean, there's the sense that 1968 and the Chicago riots and all that sort of stuff are relevant now too, and that there's kind of these people taking to the streets now with the Ferguson and New York incidences, and then the cable news stuff where really we're watching a lot of people scream very loudly. And I remember watching Jon Stewart one night, and he's like, where are the moderates? We need the moderates to stand up and scream loudly.
Exactly. And part of that is what the film talks about, which is, you know, television is this amplifying box, and it gives voice and uneven weight to the people on the extremes, because the people on the extremes are angry, and anger makes for good television. So it's created this bad feedback loop that we're stuck in.
The camera loves the conflict. These guys have the conflict. The cable news, that, you know, it's about the fireworks and not about the content.
But I think it's also a case where people who used to watch the news, everyone used to watch the same channels. Now you watch the channel that agrees with you most.
Sure.
Right?
It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword of, you know, having the news come down from on high was a certain perspective in and of itself. The good thing was there was a center from which everyone could respond. There was a conversation that could be had because a set of facts was shared. Whereas now, if you're tuned into one channel and I'm tuned in to the other, we may be living in entirely different worlds where what I understand to be going on and you understand to be going on have no similarity.
Right, we're much more likely to argue than discuss.
Well, yeah, we're much more likely to call blue two different things because we don't share the same sense of fact.
Yeah. in terms of that sort of coming to minds, representing two minds on screen, having the two of you guys work together. Obviously, you've worked together a bunch, but where did you guys first meet, and what makes for a successful film partnership?
I mean, we met back in Memphis in maybe 2000, and I was doing a documentary about Sam Phillips, who had started Sun Records, and Robert was writing a book about Muddy Waters at the time. And one of our kind of mentors and friends, Peter Goralnik, introduced us, and you know, he had an idea to make a documentary about Muddy Waters, and I said, yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yes, and so Morgan, I was just getting discouraged about, I was toward the end of my written biography and had been trying to get a film off the ground, couldn't get it off the ground. Morgan came in and gave it flight, and I don't know why it works. It works because we like the same food.
Yeah.
Which is
barbecue.
Memphis barbecue.
Memphis barbecue. Yeah.
So the thing about obviously these two guys, they both seem to have been defeated at various stages of their careers. They both ran for office and were defeated. Certainly late in their careers, they seem to be have been a little deflated when they weren't in the public spotlight.
Yeah.
But both have these kind of grand ideas and huge successes at the same
I
time.
mean, one thing that gets at, which I think is important, is that they're outsiders. So even though they became big voices at the left and the right, they weren't of the left and the right. They were never inside the party machine in the same way. And they were, in part because they were such original thinkers. They were much more leaders than followers or amplifiers.
And slight skewing of that is that Buckley, I think, became the party voice at one point because he brought the party to him, and set an agenda that the party agreed with. And as he aged, and the party, I think there's a great line in the film from Sam Tannenhouse about conservatism is an insurgency, and it's about always moving further to the right. So Buckley had taken the
Republicans.
Lindsay sort of moderate Republican stance, the Nelson Rockefeller moderate Republican stance, and moved it further to the right. And ultimately, he lived to see the Tea Party move it further to the right than he wanted to go.
Right, and obviously
And made him an outsider again.
And Reagan being the big hero of that, and
Right.
and Buckley arguably being responsible for putting Reagan in
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
White House.
Puppet master of sorts.
Yeah. Who, if these guys have equivalents today, who are they?
I wish they did.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean,
Who are they? Yeah.
Yeah,
Who
I mean-
are they and where are they?
Yeah.
I mean, we interviewed a number of people in the film who are kind of a modern day approximation, but people like a Frank Rich or an Andrew Sullivan or a Christopher Hitchens, who we interviewed, who passed away, unfortunately. You know, but America just doesn't accommodate figures this big anymore. You know, people are supposed to fit into boxes, and these guys didn't fit into boxes.
Not this big and not that independently minded. You know, there's not the avenue. Everything is so focused that I don't think there's not that center fountain of information from which someone can create this independent stance.
If Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley Jr. Encouraged or provoked each other to be the best that they can be, who provokes or encourages you or challenges you to be the best you can be?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I mean, on a personal level, I take inspiration from Morgan, and he mentioned Peter Groundlick. I mean, politically or, in our work,
Yeah.
Both.
filmmaking work
Yeah.
and writing work. For me, it's very, it's very personal. So I go with like my immediate circle.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, politically, I mean, just trying to find, we have lots of personal inspirations, but, at a kind of a societal level, like who inspires me? It's tough. It's tough. I think that's why I think everybody has there's a little bit of a malaise because, people aren't willing to be daring enough to be inspirational.
And as an artist, as a documentary filmmaker, who
Yeah.
personally challenges you to be the best you can be?
Everybody. I devour everything, and actually, I take ideas and inspiration from all kinds of people. Whether it's Steven Soderbergh or a great book or anything. So.
Cool. You're not willing to name names?
Oh, I'm gonna have to think about it.
So John Lithgow and Kelsey Grammer provided voices for both these great men. Why them, and what did that kind of level of celebrity essentially add to the flavor?
It was a real question in the making of the show of what to do with their voices. We knew, these guys wrote a lot of words, and a lot of words about this incident, so we had great material to work with. And one of the ongoing issues was, do we get someone to recreate their voices, or do we get independent voices? We talked about, this is kind of the way it works well, is that we took ideas and pushed them to extremes. Do we want women doing their voices, children doing their voices, knockoffs? And in a way, these two guys carry enough authority in their own demeanors that we felt like, and their voices were different enough that we felt like they could carry this.
Plus they're actors, so they bring an emotion to it, which was important too.
Yeah. And finally, did Gore get to see any of this, any of your work in progress before he passed, or was it all kind of put together posthumous?
He didn't. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he did not see it, but I'm pretty certain he would have hated it.
I think he would have hated it, but he would have loved the fact that he was being presented at the height of his powers.
Yeah, he wouldn't have admitted it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was a dapper dresser, so seeing himself on screen as a
in his
younger
handsome
man.
days, like he liked to watch the debates over and over. So,
He and Buckley had that in common.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Thanks, Elliot. Thanks for having
me.
meet you
Thank you.
both.
Thanks.
Cheers.